Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to episode of my F1 2020 My Team Career Mode, episode 116 today for the Bahrain Grand Prix in Season 7. If you guys did miss the opening episode and round of this season uploaded yesterday, then be sure to go check the one out, and also the pre-season video if you're not clued up on the entire thing. But we're here after a pretty successful round one, I think. You know, obviously, the two-stop in the end didn't overall work how exactly we maybe wanted it to, but it was very fine, as I said at the end of the episode. Give it 1 or 2 laps. Maybe the tyre wear would have been too much for the likes of Verstappen, because we saw half the grid did go to a late two-stop, and you saw people like Leclerc, who was completely down and out of the entire Grand Prix. He actually managed to score a few points, so fair play. And to be fair, we did get second place at least, got Ocon at the end. It was unfortunate Lando had an issue with his car. Hopefully that's not the case this episode, and it can be a stronger one for him, because he kind of deserved a podium, I feel, after such a strong first stint. But Verstappen showed some rapid pace, some pace that we saw him show at the end of the last season. So maybe this is Verstappen's time to shine, maybe, and Gasly is going to take a back seat in terms of the silver arrows. And then I was massively surprised by Racing Point not being anywhere. They didn't look too punchy. Thought, you know, third time lucky. Season 5, they won 3 races with Stroll. Season 6, I think it was, 1 or 2 with Stroll and Albon. I thought maybe this season might be the one, but they, were underwhelming. But maybe it was just a fluke. Let's see. Round 2, Bahrain. It's a very different circuit. Bit of a power circuit, so maybe the Mercedes-powered cars overall will be doing even better than they maybe did at the Australian Grand Prix. But for us, it's now just about trying to get through the qualifying sessions, of course, as we go on to Saturday. Under the floodlights, though, the car, this Quadrant car, looking very, very lovely in the night sky, and it's going to be an easy job to get through into the second part of qualifying, of course. Gasly, though, looking strong, actually, there in the first part, to say that what I just said, and Verstappen down the order, and the Ferraris, again, a little bit on the back foot, and Racing Point also not showing that much pace over 1 lap there, so maybe I've just jinxed them in terms of me wanting to see them improve, or I thought they would improve, because they have overall, I think, done quite successfully at Bahrain usually, maybe with some alternate strategies. That's another thing at Bahrain. Like Australia, there will be some differing strategies, but even more so at Bahrain, the natural flow of things is it's the 1-stop v the 2-stop, because the people qualifying into Q3 have to do a 2-stop to actually make it through to the end of the race, so it's always I don't know, part frustrating, but also part exciting kind of strategy split here at Bahrain on the F1 game, because you always know there's going to be some chaos with that traffic and difference of strategy. But we're getting through this flyer then in Q2, the car feeling a bit unstable actually on the exit of turn 2, that was, and the rear end stepping out and over the curbs, flirting a little bit too much as we go through the left-hander, and the car just completely rocks and goes and snaps. And I just about managed to save it, actually, keep it out of the wall just about by kind of rolling the car and letting it kind of just settle down rather than just locking up the front tyres, trying to slow it down. But yeah, so unfortunate, that curb on the left and the right there in that section can catch you out, and Hamilton has now just hit us into the left-hander. We talked about there being maybe some bad blood between me and Hamilton. Didn't really show up anything last episode, but here we let the red mist descend a bit, and I get a bit annoyed and just love tap him a little bit on the front right tyre. Sebastian Vettel-esque at Baku, as I don't know what Hamilton was doing there. I was going slowly because, of course, I was obviously just cooling down, because there was no point doing that lap. That lap was gone. No need to dive bomb down the inside and hit me and break your own front wing and maybe damage my car there. So I don't know what on earth Hamilton was doing there. Only a warning for 2 of us, so no penalties there applied. You can actually get a penalty, I believe, in the game if you do something a little bit too rash, but that was just a warning collision with Hamilton from the FIA. But eventually we do set a second lap time and get through into the top 10 shootout, and Hamilton, ironically, is knocked out then after doing such a decent job. To be fair to him, I'll compliment him, I don't mind. He did such a great job last episode to actually show some true pace and some maybe resurrection, but this time round, not the one. Although, to be fair, Ocon's only P9, so the McLarens actually look very surprisingly slow. They were one of the top teams last race, and both Ferraris have made it through into the top 10 shootout. And Red Bulls actually are there. What is going on here? This is a very topsy-turvy qualifying session. I've got completely no clue now, actually. Sorry, guys. I've got no clue who's going to be quick here, because this is, that's a bit weird. That's a very weird Q2 session. And so we move on into Q3, and the mistakes continue as we go a bit wayward. Although, to be fair, that first set of soft tyres, this is actually on a set of scrub tyres from Q1 because I had to burn 2 new sets in Q2, of course, to get through into the top 10 shootout. But still, a bit of a mistake in that same section. We need to be careful of that. And I don't know what it is. You know, the car's, you know, technically the car's the same. It's the same FOM car. But through that section, the car felt way more wayward and just not balanced than it did in previous seasons. I don't know what that's about, but oh well. We go through the motions, and we go through that second flying lap then, obviously gaining a decent amount of time, 1.6, 1.7, quite a fair bit of time, but we were obviously down because of that mistake on the first flyer, and it's only good enough for P7. So I'm actually a little bit disappointed by that. Not too as high up as I thought it would. And Lando Norris, once again, doing a decent job. Not quite pole position. Gasly will take that one. But both Mercs looking strong. But Gasly maybe hearing what I said about him pre-race maybe. And he's actually showing up and making up for that poor race at Australia with a pole position. Both Red Bulls, though, looking so... They were out in Q2 and were nowhere in Australia. And then here they are on the second and third row. Very, very baffling. And then both Ferraris kind of maybe back to where they were showing form in Australia with right at the bottom of the top 10. But still very baffling, confusing. So we may have a very mixed up Bahrain Grand Prix ahead of us, looking at this very random pecking order and knowing the strategy. Great times. Let's go on to the grid.
We're here again then at a circuit famous for its stunning visuals and thrilling battles for glory. Who will take the spotlight in the Bahrain Grand Prix today? There's no shortage of passing opportunities around the 3.36 miles of the Bahrain International Circuit, with the best at turn 1, of course, and then another soon into turn 4. 15 corners here, 6 to the left and 9 to the right, and we could see 1 or 2 flat spots into the tight left-hander of turn 10. Now, Anthony Davidson, I wonder, might we be in for some early pit stops today for the midfield teams, all trying to put some pressure on or disrupting things for the leaders up front?
If you're in the middle of the pack, you know, you got your own race to run. I don't think they're going to be thinking about causing trouble up front. However, closer to the head of the pack, don't be surprised to see some split strategies. If you're running second and third, for example, bringing one car in for an undercut while leaving the other one out there longer can put a lot of pressure on the leader and maybe force them into an error.
Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. A fantastic effort from Pierre Gasly yesterday puts him on pole, edging out Lando Norris, who'll start from P2. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Ricciardo, Carlos Sainz, and Stroll, the owner driver, Ocon, Giovinazzi, and Charles Leclerc, Albon, De Vries, Daniel Kvyat, and Hamilton, Bottas, Matsushita, George Russell, and Nicholas Latifi, Aitken, Schumacher, Magnussen, and Luca Giotto. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track and get this Grand Prix underway.
So starting from where we are in this race, we've got a bit of work to do. Like I said, though, with Bahrain, there's always the added caveat. There will be some cars behind us that were outside the top 10 that will be on a 1-stop. We're all going to be on a 2-stop, even without the tyre wear. You know, even base level tyre wear in this game, you do the 1-stop around here because it's the fastest ways to go because the soft tyre just doesn't really go that long at the very start of the race. And then you've got this added caveat of I now can't call the pecking order. I'm so still shocked that Red Bulls are looking so quick and the racing points have been nowhere. I mean, Stroll made it through a thing, but Albon got knocked out. So very, very battling from them. And then Ferrari, they seem to be a little bit quicker than they were Australia, but not too sure. And then obviously you got people like Gasly turning up after such a poor race at Australia. I thought maybe that was going to be him written off for a bit in terms of the form we know from AI, but I guess anything can happen, and it will happen this season as we've got another topsy-turvy race maybe ahead of us as we go to 5 red lights then for round number 2 of Season 7. 4 lights are out, and we're underway, and it's a pretty mediocre start from us, bogging down actually in the gears as we climb up, and Ocon's got us into turn 1. The Ferraris on the left, they actually tap me, and we go to the inside then to try and get out of that situation, but we get caught on the curb and the rear end steps, and we're down to P9. So it's been a shocking start for us here at the Bahrain GP. Meanwhile, Lando Norris, I think, is still in second place, chasing after Gasly. Verstappen close behind, Giovinazzi and Sainz right ahead of us, battling as Gio makes some contact with Sainz. The two go neck and neck into the next right, and the left. Can we get stuck in? Being a little bit careful of the curb on the left-hand side, but into the hairpin, trying to stick our nose in. Bit of contact made with Giovinazzi. It's all a bit chaotic in this opening lap. We have a little look to the inside of Sainz, but nothing does it. So in the end, it's a scruffy start, and we go backwards at the start. Very rare on the F1 2020 game, because usually the AI don't get amazing starts, but for some reason, I just bogged down so much. And then into turn 1, I got tapped by the Ferrari, so that made me go to the inside, and then I got caught up on the curb, so I kind of did myself a bit of a double whammy in terms of slowing myself down into turn 1, so not ideal. But yeah, Gasly leads the way. I thought Lando Norris may have got into the lead by the minimap. That's why I got a bit excited, but no, he's in second place. Gasly actually building a bit of a gap right now in P1, so looking to try and assert some dominance early on. Verstappen P3. Then you've got Ricciardo flying really high in the Red Bull ahead of Stroll and the Aston Martin, and then Ocon chasing after. Meanwhile, we chase after Ricciardo's teammate Sainz in the other Red Bull car. Got a good run on him down that straight. Meanwhile, Stroll, I'm pretty sure, was trying to overtake the Red Bull of Ricciardo, and he doesn't do it as we get the move done on Sainz. Stroll is left stranded and instead is being attacked by Ocon now on the outside. The McLaren tries to go the long way round. Bit of a lock up there from the Canadian. They make some contact. Ocon, though, with the fantastic move maybe in the McLaren. Yes, he does. On the outside, no, Stroll comes back. What a fantastic fight this is between Stroll and Ocon. They're still at it into the hairpin, and Stroll is down the inside the hairpin, and he's going to get the traction maybe to keep the position. Yes, he does. But what a fantastic fight between those two early doors in this Grand Prix. Action flying about. And we're now caught up behind Giovinazzi. Leclerc behind Sainz. He's struggling yet again, Leclerc, in that other Ferrari. Giovinazzi looking more confident in what is just a worse Ferrari car, it seems, or at least everyone else has got a little bit better and is liking these first two circuits as we close up to Gio. We're a little bit far back, but I want to go for it. We're going to go for the big bold dive to the inside, catching Giovinazzi a little bit napping, maybe looking ahead at Ocon and Stroll, but a lockup doesn't help us rotate the car. Instead, we're trying to switch it right to left, but it's oh so close to the rear end of that Ferrari, and now Sainz is getting in the mix, and it might be 3 wide into the next right-hander. We go the long way round, give the two on the inside some space to work with, but eventually we dance around the outside and get that done, and Sainz is unable to get Giovinazzi, and those two might be fighting now for the next part of this race. Meanwhile, look back ahead to the race lead. Gasly is still in the lead, but Norris is closing, and he's built a gap to Verstappen. Verstappen, last race's race winner, looks so dominant and so quick at times. He's looking a bit slow, and he's actually being caught by that pack led by Ricciardo. And the pack that we're catching up to. Meanwhile, you can see, as I said, Giovinazzi and Sainz scrapping away as we try and get away. And look at Leclerc go now. Leclerc down the inside. He's opportunistic. Sainz a bit slow, being caught up with the Italian. And Leclerc is going to try and make it 2 Ferraris ahead of that Red Bull. Doesn't quite make it, though. And you can see Leclerc just isn't the same. I don't know what is going on. I've said it before. I find it really interesting that there's this weird thing with AI on this game where they could just suddenly lose a lot of pace to what they were last season. It does mix things up for us, obviously, in this career mode series, season to season, which is good. But it does also confuse me a bit how Leclerc looks so slow now these days compared to how quick he was at the end of last season. Meanwhile, like I said, that's Verstappen. You saw, look at the gap there between him and Norris. Norris and Gasly in a world of their own. Norris within 1 second of Gasly, so those two will surely be getting into a fight for P1 maybe sooner rather than later, but Verstappen is really lacking speed. He's actually backing everyone up into me, and we're closing up slowly but surely, but it's now time for the first pit stop, and it's the same thought for Stroll and Ricciardo, so we're both coming in, all 3 of us coming in early for the medium tyres and trying to get an undercut respectively on the people ahead of us, i.e. Verstappen, also Ocon in the mix there, but with Verstappen going so slow from P3, maybe that last podium spot is on the cards. It seems like maybe, unfortunately, P2 and 1, you know, Lando and Gasly doing such a good job. That may be a little bit out this stretch, obviously. That's what happens when you get a poor start and get caught up in some fighting at the start, unfortunately. But, you know, you can't obviously aim every single time. I mean, we are pretty damn consistent last season, but early days in this season, don't need to be too disheartened right now. We'll just do the best job we can of trying to maybe catch up and race Stroll and Ocon. But right now, we're actually racing Mick Schumacher, one of my very first, or my first teammate in this entire series here. We go and try and do a switchback move, and he's giving us a real good fight there. and it's been a long, long while since he's been in the same car as me since Season 1. Seems so long ago now, but we now move on to lap number 9. That overtake's done, and we've got some clean air to work with, and we're going to come into a massive pack of cars as Ocon makes some contact with Magnussen out of the pit lane, and Stroll slow. We use that to our advantage. Magnussen holds up Ocon. Can we get the Frenchman? Maybe it's going to be 3 wide. We go either side of Magnussen. Magnussen gives Ocon a bit of a maybe like a showing to with the elbows there, and there's a bit of a twitch from Ocon to try and navigate that cleanly, and we both get it round the outside, either side of the Haas car, but unable to get Ocon quite. But at least we got Stroll there. Stroll got basically massively hampered by like the domino effect that happened into turn 1, and there was nothing he can do basically. I felt a bit bad for him because it was such an easy overtake around the outside of turn 1. But now here we are, lap number 10, the next one, and again at turn 1, a lot of traffic happening with cars fighting each other, and that's Verstappen holding off Ricciardo. So Ricciardo is going for Verstappen, showing out of nowhere the Red Bulls have just come alive here at Bahrain. They were really nowhere in Australia, but now they're going to attack last race's race winner. Very perplexing, but it could be exciting for us now because we may have 3 cars in the mix to fight. And we continue just to stick with Ocon then, trying to get the DRS for the first time here on towards lap 11. Yellow flags ahead. Ricciardo going for a move on Verstappen, and the yellow flags are out for Russell. Russell going slow in the middle of the circuit. He's out of this Grand Prix, I think, as we send one to the inside of Ocon. He got caught up a bit. I think he lifted off because of the yellow flags with Russell, whereas we just continued on, and we've used that to our advantage, and we're up into P12 now, as George Russell is indeed out of this race. My nearest former teammate from last season. Such a shame. I'm still kind of a little bit annoyed that he went back to Alfa Romeo. I was really hoping he would go to McLaren, because that would have been very, very exciting rather than maybe Hamilton. But obviously, to be fair, Hamilton did seem a little bit better at Australia, but so far we haven't seen too much of him in this race. But now, here we are looking at Ricciardo v Verstappen, and Verstappen is just not looking that comfortable right now in this Grand Prix. Don't know what's going on with him. Maybe some tyre issues, I don't know, or just whatever the case, the temperature's just not there for him. He's on the softs actually, so maybe his tyres are overheating. But here we go then for the double whammy, the double slipstream, and it's going to be a very tasty little move there to get 2 places for 1 up into P10. Ricciardo over to Verstappen, fair play, but we had the overspeed. We have the pace advantage over that Red Bull. But yeah, I'm mystified by that Mercedes car. Maybe it really is just the tyres. Maybe the internal carcass temperature for him is just not feeling too great. But now looking to overtake some traffic. Fiat awkwardly had to try and take some avoiding action, but in the end we actually managed to find our way around the outside very nicely at the hairpin. And then Aiken as well in the different liveried Williams car for this season in the blue, and we go down the inside though. Doesn't matter how much you change the paint scheme of that Williams car, it's just very, very slow in this career. And as we overtake him, literally at the same time up the road, Norris and Gasly are making their way through the traffic. But this is what the traffic can do at Bahrain. You know, we weren't this close to Norris and Gasly, but they're just there at turn 1. But we need to also get past this traffic. We go round the outside of the Alfa Romeo as he gets caught up, but we have a real big snap on the rear end. What on earth was that? Just lost grip for some reason. I was way too confident there, but that was fine like the lap before, so I don't know what was the difference there, but just the rear end snapped away from us. We had to re-overtake Aiken then, and we have to re-overtake Latifi now into the hairpin. Can we go for the dive down the inside? Send one, keep our nose clean if we can, and Latifi gives us the room. Unfortunate tiny little screen freeze there, but Latifi gives us the room, and we're able to just get that position back up into P7, and now we can catch up to the other Alpine car of Matsushita. But that was really unfortunate, because that alone's lost us like what, about 3 seconds there to Norris and Gasly. So, like I was about to say, that's the power of the traffic, is Matsushita loses the back end, so his tyre wear is kicking in. He's been on those mediums from the start of the Grand Prix, so you can see it's really now taking a toll as we go a little bit off circuit, trying to jockey for position and get on the outside into the second last corner up into P6. But yeah, the traffic is a nightmare, because we've lost 3.5 seconds now to Norris and Gasly. So that's what can happen, really, and that's what will happen later on in the race, I'm sure, when, you know, those one-stoppers meet us again once we make that second pit stop, because some of them are coming in now, but they're going onto hard tyres, like Albon there, you saw. Meanwhile, though, up the road, 4 seconds up the road, I might add now, Gasly and Norris, and Gasly goes defensive into turn 1, and Norris tries to have a little look on the outside for the race lead, but doesn't quite do it. But this seems to be like a battle that is definitely brewing for this race win and lead at the moment in this Grand Prix. But in stark contrast with Norris speeding up in this second stint. We're slowing down. Maybe, you know, that rear end twitch was a sign of issues with the medium tyre because they just don't have too much pace in this second stint. And up the behind me, these guys are all using each other with DRS and they're catching me slowly but surely. Stroll leading the way, looking quicker than he ever did in qualifying, but he's right there ahead of Ocon, who's using him as a bit of a horse to his carriage. Meanwhile, though, back to our teammate, and it's a bit of a twitch as he pulls out to try and make the move on the outside, but Gasly gets the elbows out. But a contact made that was between Norris and Gasly maintains the race lead. But this fight for P1 is heating up between those two. Meanwhile, though, back to that fight I was mentioning, Stroll v Ocon, and also you got both Red Bulls in the background as well, Ricciardo and Sainz. But Ocon looking likely to make a pass. He goes to the inside there. He's going to fly by with DRS, I think. Yes, he does. And he's up the order, and look how close they are now to me as I go wide into turn 1, you saw. So I'm actually really struggling to even slow down the car at turn 1 with the front right locking up a fair bit, and I'm just really not digging these medium tyres. I think my internal car crush temperature, speaking of Verstappen struggling, I think my ones are kind of blown, and when that happens it's very hard to bring them back into temp and to get them to work. Meanwhile, though, Lando Norris's tyres are working very well as he sends one to the inside now once again. The other way round, he's on the inside, and this one may just be it for the race lead. Yes, he is. He's up into the race lead. Fantastic dive bomb there down the inside of Gasly, and he's up into P1. Our new teammate, Lando Norris, he did so well last race. Unfortunate to have that issue with his car, but he's now leading the way ahead of Gasly. Lap 18, though, back to our POV, and we're in. Stroll's in, and I think the Red Bull and also Ocon as well is in, and Ocon actually fell away from Stroll, actually. But all of us are in now for this second pit stop and last stint of this race. Another set of mediums. A little bit tentative because I was tempted, I can't lie. I was tempted to go longer on those mediums and go to a set of soft tires just because I really didn't gel well with that first set of mediums. But I thought, okay, maybe if I just don't blow the tires a little bit earlier and we're a little bit easier maybe with the throttle input, maybe and not so many lockups, maybe we can make this tire set work a little bit better. But at the moment, lap 20, Ricciardo's just got so much overspeed with DRS. We're deploying ERS, but it doesn't matter, and Ricciardo's got us, and look at that, Ocon has overtaken us. So actually, my bad, that McLaren in the pit lane wasn't even Ocon, it was Hamilton that must have been in the pit lane, because Ocon stayed out then and he's jumped us with the overcut strategy. Both myself, Ricciardo, been done by the Frenchman, and we're still battling the Aussie. Ricciardo down the inside, we give him a good old squeeze, but we have to give him some room as well because he was going to hit us if we carried on with our normal racing line there, but we do enough just to make it work, and we're up into P8. Then again, we go very defensive, and look at Hamilton go. Hamilton with the aggressive pounce down the inside. Can Hamilton get it on the inside? Ricciardo on the left-hand side. Stroll's also maybe in the mix, but Hamilton, no, can't quite get it. Ricciardo maintains that position for now. Oh no, what the? Hamilton! Oh my word. Hamilton just pulled off a round the outside move there, and the camera didn't even show it properly. That was insane. And here he comes now. He's a new man in McLaren. Hamilton, he's powered past us. We've got nothing even with ERS. He's got DRS there. I don't. So when you're down that straight, you're pretty much a sitting duck without DRS. And so he's through and past. We have to actually go and race Hamilton now, which is something I didn't think I'd be saying, to be honest. I mean, I know we saw him briefly in Australia, but I really didn't think his resurrection would continue consistently. But here he is then ahead of us, and we're actually having a battle with our former teammate, something we never did in the same car. But here we go, he's a new man, but we go for the move on the inside. Meanwhile, behind us, Stroll is ahead of Ricciardo now. But here we go past Hamilton, but we're going to tighten up our own line B on the inside there. And Hamilton gets a really good entry and exit to turn 2, and he's on the outside. He's kept his foot in, and he's re-overtaken us. And the hand of anger goes up in the cockpit. Bit of contact made for Hamilton with DRS on that second mini straight. He locks up, and we're going to have to be very careful there because I didn't want him to lock up and just go straight into me and hit my car and maybe break my front wing, so we have to be a bit careful, and we're still at it then. This is a hammer and tong fight between myself and Lewis Hamilton, a battle that I was hoping we would have last season as teammates, but it never happened. But he truly looks like a new, more aggressive man. Obviously, you remember in this same race weekend, he hit us in qualifying, so maybe there's some tension in the air between us two. But meanwhile then, at the lead of this Grand Prix, Albon Albon in the Aston Martin is actually leading the way on hard tyres on the one stop. One of the only kind of top cars doing the one stop, I might add. But Lando Norris gets through up into P1. Meanwhile, in the background, you can also see that was Verstappen overtaking the AlphaTauri. So it's Norris from Albon, Verstappen. Then you got the two AlphaTauris, the Prix and Bottas, both on the hard tyres, both trying the one stop, and both are actually looking really good to get some big points because we're too busy here fighting Hamilton for P9. It's been a sensational battle and race, but it's really not helped us in terms of getting up the order, and Ocon's really pulled away. And here we go now for the third time to re-overtake Hamilton. This time we cut across him a bit more on the racing line to get a better exit, and we don't compromise ourselves too much on the exit, and that hopefully might just be it. But on the exit, also with DRS, Hamilton gets a good enough run. He's still there. We're squeezing him to the inside. We're going to brake early, cut in, and it's going to be a textbook switchback on Hamilton there, and selling him the real dummy up into P8 once again. And maybe this now will be the time. 4 laps to go. Can we push away and just try and solidify, well, P9 really? That's, I mean, so this is how things can change so quickly in Season 7, it seems, as Gasly is through and he's passed on Albon. So all is restored. It is Norris dominating this last part of this race in the race lead. Gasly in second place. Look at the gap there. That's how much the traffic has affected this race. You got Albon third, then the two AlphaTauris, Ocon, who has just managed to catch and overtake Sainz. Sainz on the one stop, and Ocon has gone and overtaken him. So probably kind of shows, I think it would have been wishful thinking for us if we were going to be near Ocon, because he showed some lightning pace now in clean air, and I honestly don't think we would have kept up with him. And instead, we're only just maintaining our position ahead of his teammate Hamilton, and Verstappen and Ricciardo now looking to close up a bit with DRS into lap 26, the left-hander, where we made contact. Hamilton shoots one down the inside. We give him the room, though. Last minute, we locked up and saw him in the mirror, and that somehow didn't actually end in misery, but that could have been a carbon copy of qualifying, and it could have been a disaster for us. But look at this now, it's 3 wide. Where has Stroll come from? Where has he actually come from? He's gone down the inside of both of us, and he's overtaken both as we were 3 abreast into what is a tricky corner to do side by side anyway with one other car, let alone 2. And instead now on the exit, rear end steps, and we've only just about maintained Hamilton, but Stroll has just come through and sliced through us and overtaken both of us there. And he's also overtaken Verstappen and Ricciardo, of course. And Hamilton now does make some contact with this. It is really kicking off with Hamilton. This is now the 4th time we've had a battle, and we go on now to a new lap, and it's going to be 3 wide maybe, because Ricciardo comes in. Verstappen, could he make it 4 wide, I dare? No, not quite. But we cut across Hamilton, get to turn 1, and just park it on the apex to hold off P9. But that is just... I'm actually so taken aback at how crazy this fight has been with Hamilton. He's really a different AI now. It's good to see. Obviously, we'll see if it continues for this season, but obviously it hasn't helped us out, but it has been entertaining nonetheless. As Verstappen, though, eventually Hamilton will falter, and Verstappen, after all of that, Hamilton doesn't get any points because he's down in P11, and Verstappen's overtaken him for P10, and Verstappen's waking up finally in this race, but it's too late, and there is the man, the top left, Lando Norris, our new teammate, the kind of half team owner, I guess, of this new Quadrant AAR F1 team in Season 7. Lando Norris has won the Bahrain Grand Prix ahead of Gasly in second, looking a lot better this race, and Albon with a really fantastic P3 to try and kick-start Racing Point / Aston Martin season then. But for us, it's a very tough day in the office. It was a fun race. I felt like we raced our heart out, but it was only for 2 points.
It wasn't always plain sailing today, but a very important win nonetheless. So, Anthony, what made the difference out there today?
I think that smart tyre management on track and very smooth driving definitely assisted in their victory today. That combination meant they got the absolute maximum out of their tyres at all times.
The faces on our top 3 look so incredibly happy as they make a much-deserved victory, and a brilliant performance from them all.
So there we are then. I'm sure that's going to be a sick sight for a lot of you to see Lando Norris in Quadrant overalls on the top step of the podium with, I might add, that meme Bahrain helmet at Bahrain. It was all meant to be. Wins Bahrain. Gasly, though, second place. I really thought, honestly, at the start of the race, I thought the way Gasly was looking, he was going to just walk away with this one. But in the end, Norris showed some resilience and came through. But I guess it shows maybe, you know, again, he beat us in quali both times. And this time, we just didn't have the race pace versus him. Obviously, we didn't help ourselves with such a poor start on lap 1. We were so far away from him. And then you get caught up in so much fighting. That's what can happen if you just get caught up in something like that versus having a bit of a cleaner race with clean air, and he's on the top step, and he now leads the way in the championship, and we're actually quite some way off, but obviously it's early doors, only 2 rounds, not worried. We need to just wait a few races to really see the pattern here, but still some big question marks on the true pace of McLaren, because I feel like they're not showing their true colours. Hamilton showed how racy he can be, maybe, in that car, and I feel like McLaren, they won the most races last season, so there's more to come from them. And also Racing Point, Albon got on the board with the podium. I'm still so surprised at that qualifying pace. And also, what was Red Bull this race? They just actually turned up a bit and were actually there for once, unlike last season, so very peculiar indeed. But guys, if you did enjoy that very chaotic and action-packed Bahrain Grand Prix, then be sure to smash that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.